Hello, I'm Nima Rajan, and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. There are new developments in the battle over the future of the idled Resolute Mill in Fort Frances. Repap, the private investment firm that's looking to reopen the mill, says it is now prepared to submit a purchase offer to Resolute. But company spokesman Sean Toomey says the offer is conditional on it receiving a guaranteed wood supply that would allow for the production of the specialty paper that the company wants to turn out. Toomey says discussions have been held with the province regarding access to fiber, and while no guarantees have been made, he says the province has indicated it will look upon any such proposal favorably. Meanwhile, the town of Fort Frances has informed Resolute it will impose a site plan control process if a demolition company does take control of the mill property. That plan would call for a line of credit of no less than $20 million to ensure demolition is completed, as well as several other conditions to protect the community's interests. Resolute has previously indicated that it was looking for someone to tear down the mill. Officials with Rainy River Packaging Incorporated say they have formally submitted an offer to purchase the idled Resolute Mill in Fort Frances. The investment group behind Rainy River Packaging, commonly known as Repap, say the offer was presented Thursday. CEO Sean Toomey says he's unable to provide specifics, but says it's a multi-million-dollar offer. Toomey also said it includes a proposal to exchange saw logs for wood chips from Resolute's Sapawi operation near Atikokan and to purchase pulp from the Resolute Mill in Thunder Bay. If the deal is accepted, it could create up to 700 jobs in the Rainy River District. Resolute officials are declining to comment on the offer and will not disclose whether any other interested parties have come forward. Mayor and council in Schreiber are happy to see the hard work of the town and residents has paid off in the battle against the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation. As one resident who appealed to the Assessment Review Board won. And as Adam Riley reports, that's not just the only good news in the community.
For several years, residents of Walkers Lake and Schreiber have been battling the Municipal Property Assessment Corporation over what they say are unfair increases to the assessments on their properties. On Tuesday, Schreiber Council announced that one resident who took their case to the Assessment Review Board received a 15% decrease to the assessment given to them by MPAC. Mayor Dave Hamilton calls it a victory for both the residents and the township.
It's very satisfying because it has been a long road and certainly not over with yet. But to have that one little glimmer of hope, I think is good for a lot of people.
Hamilton is urging other residents on the higher property value spectrum to consider going to the ARB. Council was also presented with a proposal for assistance to a company which recently purchased the long-vacant Voyageur Motel. The president of Travelot Properties Incorporated, Takrim Majeur, is looking to have either a 6-month property tax break or a 1-year deferral to allow her to invest more capital into the building. Majeur has big ideas for the property, which at one time had 7 businesses operating in it.
This property holds a lot of history. I mean, everyone I speak to has told me how they've either worked there or they were there when it was open and they loved it, and it's beautiful to see, and it's really sad what happened with it. And my hope is that I can, return it to its former glory and even above if possible.
Hamilton says both he and council are interested in Majeur's proposal, but they are unable to give her a decision just yet.
We also have to take into account the Municipal Act and how that pertains to tax breaks and stuff like that. So we'll have to get back together again as a council just to discuss this one matter.
Hamilton says the community was excited as news spread of the purchase, and as more details are released, is looking forward to seeing new life come to the property. Adam Riley, TBT News.
An accused who made national headlines for spending more than 4 years in solitary confinement is now back in prison just 6 weeks after being released from custody. 26-year-old Adam Capay was arrested and charged with sexual assault with a weapon and mischief last Friday in Sioux Lookout. He was scheduled to appear in Sioux Lookout bail court on Monday. Capay was charged with killing a fellow inmate at the Thunder Bay Correctional Center when he was just 19 years old. 35-year-old Sherman Quissis was found in a cell in June of 2012 with a stab wound to the throat. He died the next day in hospital. Capay spent almost 7 years in pretrial custody and more than 1,600 days in solitary confinement before Justice John Frijo ordered a stay of that first-degree murder charge on January 28th. saying that Capet's rights under the Charter of Rights and Freedoms were violated. Capet walked out of the Thunder Bay courthouse essentially as a free man before finding himself back in jail just 42 days later. Residents in Nipigon received a shock last week when the local Mac store closed its doors permanently without warning. Shelves are now empty and crews have begun removing the contents of the store. Last year, the local Subway franchise, which was located in the same building, also unexpectedly closed. Nipigon Mayor Richard Harvey is disappointed by the loss of the only 24/7 convenience store in his community, but notes it was a corporate decision to close the store as there was no local franchisee in charge. But he is optimistic about the future.
To now be one that doesn't support having in smaller communities having stores like this. At the same time, I think there's a very strong business model, a very strong business case to be made for the importance of this store, for the financial viability of such an operation. And we certainly were reaching out. We've had some interest already from private entrepreneurs.
2 suspects are in custody following a break-and-enter at a Nipigon home early Tuesday morning that left an elderly resident injured. OPP say an 81-year-old man suffered non-life-threatening injuries after being assaulted with a weapon. 2 suspects were quickly identified and were arrested a short time after the incident in Nipigon. Police say a 29-year-old Dorian man and a 16-year-old female are facing charges that include break-and-enter and assault with a weapon. Late last year, CIBC announced it would be closing its branch in Terrace Bay, forcing customers to travel to Thunder Bay for face-to-face service. Now, Council has the numbers to determine the level of support there is to keep a bank in the town. They were presented during Monday's Council meeting. Adam Riley reports.
The results of an online banking survey in Terrace Bay are out, and it shows 85% of those surveyed say they would support a financial institution in the community. The survey and its results were presented to Council Monday evening. Councillor Bert Johnson is the lead of an ad hoc committee on banking. He says the results speak for themselves. The town wants a bank. And if CIBC holds to its plan to leave the community, it could be problematic for the financial institution.
And I believe it was 92% of those surveyed stated that they would switch to an alternative bank if it was to come to Terrace Bay. Or if CIBC stayed, that would solve all the problems.
Mayor Jody Davis says his community is about to see a lot of activity in the coming years, which would provide any banking service with plenty of business.
The East-West Tie will be having a camp in Terrace Bay starting next summer, hopefully. There's a good opportunity, the mine opening up, Zenmac mine up Winston Lake Road again, and that'll be good for Scriber and Terrace Bay. And things are looking up pretty good. We got waterfront development, which will hopefully bring in more tourists.
Council was also presented with an ask from the Agua Saban Golf Course for $40,000. President Bobby Spadoni says membership numbers at the club have gone down, which is putting some financial strain on the club.
Unfortunately, we have some capital costs coming up. Things like our roof, things like some clubhouse furniture, and at the current time, on our operating budget, we're not, it's hard enough to break even as it is without having to spend this extra money.
Davis says the club, which is run entirely by volunteers, has a lot of value for Terrace Bay, and council has to weigh out the value of the club versus how much the town has to support it.
And the other part is it does bring a lot of value, and we're now looking at developing the waterfront and doing some further development down there. So the golf club's value should increase even more so.
If the club doesn't receive any money, it will operate for the 2019 season, but could fold in 2020. Adam Riley, TBT News.
A final memorandum of agreement designed to address widespread housing concerns in Cat Lake has been signed by the band and the federal government. The signing ceremony was conducted by video conference after bad weather prevented Indigenous Services Minister Seamus O'Regan from traveling to Thunder Bay. The agreement provides almost $13 million to address the community's housing needs, including $5 million for construction of 15 new housing units, $2.1 million to renovate and repair 21 units, and $3.1 million to support 10 new modular housing units. As well, $2.4 million will be provided by Ottawa for associated costs like transportation of materials and site preparation. And another $200,000 is being made available for a temporary warehouse. The deal follows the declaration of a state of emergency in January. Widespread mold problems in homes in the community have left many residents ill, including several children. And the death of a 48-year-old Cat Lake woman is also being blamed on the mold issue. Coming up next, concerns are mounting regarding overcrowding at area jails. A local corrections officer says unprecedented overcrowding at the Thunder Bay Jail is now a crisis, and he fears for the safety of both guards and inmates. Mike Lundy, who also serves as co-chair of the Provincial Health and Safety Committee, says the inmate count reached 198 this week. That's far higher than in December of 2015 when a riot broke out in the jail that saw a guard taken hostage. Ryan Benazzo reports.
More than 3 years after a riot and hostage-taking inside the Thunder Bay Jail, the chronic overcrowding that helped set the stage for that violence hasn't gotten better. In fact, it's gotten worse.
This count's about 40 or 50 higher than it was in 2015.
Corrections officer and Provincial Health and Safety co-chair Mike Lundy says the problem is worse than he's ever seen in 15 years on the job. 198 inmates as of this week were stuffed inside a jail with just 147 beds, and that number includes segregation cells.
With that comes increased tensions, more assaults, a lot of the same things that led to the 2015 riot, but now we've exponentially gone higher with the numbers. So it's getting scary in there for the staff.
And he worries that the 2015 riot won't be the last at the century-old jail.
I pray that it doesn't happen. I pray that we don't have to go through that. But the tensions are rising. When you overcrowd a bunch of grown men into one area, tensions rise.
Lundy has reached out to the regional director from the Ministry of Corrections, who's responsible for northern jails, Kathy Kinger. Lundy notes she did respond immediately, and the two are working toward a solution, though he couldn't give specifics, citing security concerns. When asked what the ministry is doing to address the issue, spokesperson Brent Ross replied, in part, the ministry has no control over the number of people admitted to custody or the length or circumstances that led to their stay. He goes on to say that the ministry is working to relocate inmates to other correctional facilities in the Northwest region. Historically, inmates have been transferred to Kenora or Sault Ste. Marie, but those facilities are already overcrowded as well. As for the promise of a new, modern Thunder Bay Correctional Centre made by the previous Liberal government, Lundy says he's losing confidence that the PCs will follow through on that commitment.
A lot of smoke and mirrors so far as we've seen. As far as we're concerned, from the worker standpoint, we keep hearing, don't worry, but we're starting to worry.
Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
Meanwhile, the province is upgrading the infrastructure at the Kenora jail to alleviate issues at the nearly 100-year-old facility. Last September, a guard was taken hostage and assaulted, which prompted union officials to speak about safety concerns and overcrowding issues. The upgrades include improving lighting, cameras, doors and locks, strengthening the partnership between faculty, staff and local police services, recruiting an intelligence officer, providing staff with specialized equipment for the crisis intervention team, and building new training and crisis-ready rooms, and implementing new procedures such as increasing staff presence when doors are unlocked or medical assistance is provided. TPD News reached out to the Ministry of Community Safety and Correctional Services for details regarding the dollar value and timeline for the upgrades, but no response was received. It's a problem all communities have to deal with, but in Kenora, property crime rates are increasing. Starting in 2016, OPP in Kenora began to notice an increase in property crime within the community. The rates got worse in 2017 and increased further in 2018. Inspector Jeff Duggan says it's too early to tell what 2019 is going to look like, but his officers are already employing several different tactics to stem the issue, such as its community street crime unit, which deals with both property crime and street-level drug enforcement. But he adds other non-policing agencies are also getting involved.
We have right now is substance abuse and mental health, and those have been problems for years in Kenora. We're trying to deal with those through different community partners because it's not always a policing issue. Although crime rates are a policing issue, sometimes the solution isn't found within the OPP or any other police service, right? It's working with those other community partners.
Duggan is asking the public to let the OPP know when incidents occur, and much of the work they do is based off of analytics. If the police don't know if something is happening, they will be unable to direct resources to the issue. More people will soon have a place to call home in northwestern Ontario after the completion of 127 more affordable housing units. On Tuesday, Ontario's Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, Stevie Clark, and the Federal Minister of Employment, Workforce Development and Labour, Patty Hajdu, announced a $14.4 million investment towards more affordable housing units in the Northwest. That total will be divided between 15 different projects across the region. Besides the funding announcement, they also celebrated the official opening of 24 one-bedroom units on Algoma Street, 10 new units in Oliver Papoonj, and 4 units in Nipigon. DSAB Chief Administrative Officer Bill Bradica says the new units on Algoma are already fully leased out.
The waitlist is in total about 1,000 people, close to 2/3 of which are single, non-senior individuals. And so this building specifically really will help to meet that largest component of the waitlist.
It's meant to help a variety of individuals, families, seniors, Indigenous people in a variety of ways. We work very closely with our service managers and our Indigenous program administrators. They're the people that are on the ground. They know the need in the community.
The funding for the 15 projects across northwestern Ontario comes through the Canada-Ontario Investment in Affordable Housing Agreement. After the break, we get an update on mining activities in the Greenstone area. It's been a few months since the federal government approved the environmental assessment for Greenstone gold mines. And while the company awaits the results of the provincial EA, there is still activity on the site. Ryan Benazzo reports.
2019 could be a big year for development in Greenstone, especially if the province's environmental assessment comes back with favorable results for Greenstone Gold. Manager Eric Lamontagne says throughout the spring and into the summer, they'll focus on the detailed engineering of the project.
We probably come back here to do some other tests, and we will hope to, during this time, probably, and we hope by the first quarter, obtain our provincial EA. We look for this year since months and months, and it's an important milestone for us.
Lamontagne says the mine, should it get the go-ahead, will also help clean up the nearby water system by removing the source of arsenic that's leaching into the Kenogamish Lake.
We will remove a portion of this old tailings, and we'll send in the new facilities where we will control the seepage, and we'll have a temporary and permanent water treatment plant, and this will remove the arsenic.
Greenstone Mayor Ronald Beaulieu says the community is standing with the company and doing everything it can to help.
As a municipality, we're hoping that's what it is. We're working with them in regards to infrastructure and in regards to a lot of the wants and needs when such a project goes on. This municipality has a large area that we can service, the mining area.
Beyond the environmental cleanup, Beaulieu believes there will be other direct and indirect economic opportunities should the mine go into full production.
Can you imagine? You're going to have to find a way to feed maybe 800 to 900 people in the same day for 24 hours a day. So those are the kind of needs that are going to be needed around here, like people wanting the service industry, parts, whatever. So there's a lot at stake.
Ryan Benazzo, TBT News.
It's been 2 weeks since the Ford government announced how it will be overhauling the province's healthcare system, and the effects of the overhaul are still being pondered by those charged with leading healthcare providers across the region. Health Minister Christine Elliott made the announcement on February 26th, which will see agencies like the local health integration networks, eHealth Ontario, and Cancer Care Ontario be combined into a super agency called Ontario Health. Dryden Regional Health Centre CEO Wade Petronik says there are some good opportunities that could come with the transformation, which he believes will create better integrated care and see health providers work closer together. However, he also has some concerns with the amalgamation. Petronik says with the centralization, the difficulty to communicate the unique needs of the region could increase.
Some regional presence in 4 or 5 offices across the province. Where are they going to put that office in the north? That would be a concerning point for me. So if it's going to be Sudbury, the north is a very big area. So if we've got, Sudbury's about as close as Calgary to Dryden. So I don't think it's really accessible.
Petronik says hopefully the agency will have some sort of boots on the ground presence in the Northwest so the bureaucracy of the system can understand the realities and practicalities of the region. As the ice cover on area lakes begins to recede, the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry is reminding anglers to begin the process of removing ice huts. The heavy snowfall we received this winter, paired with the recent surge in warmer temperatures, has caused significant slush conditions on lakes across the region. With public safety being a major concern, Ministry Conservation Officer Davis Viebeck is strongly encouraging anglers to plan ahead before these icy and slushy conditions worsen.
Anglers who do place huts on top of the surface of the ice are ultimately responsible for anything that they place on the ice, and that goes above and beyond the actual ice hut itself, any associated materials. Obviously, public safety is obviously a concern of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry as well, so we don't want to put people in a situation where their safety is compromised, but anglers have to plan ahead. Fortunately, we do have considerable ice cover on the inland lakes right now.
Lake Superior has a mandatory removal deadline of March 31st. For those who fail to meet that deadline, an investigation will be launched and charges could be laid. Inland waters do not have a deadline. However, removal within the next month is strongly encouraged. And that's all for this edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Nima Rajan. Take care.